So in looking at some other issues here, talking about riders, let's look at, we're not talking about cats now, let's talk about the motorcyclists, Okada riders. So what does the law say about all of them, their conduct on the roads, as well as when they drive and they're carrying some passengers, what holds them liable and the likes?
Okay, let me quickly set out the rules as they now are under this law affecting commercial motorcyclists. Commercial motorcycles are no longer allowed on all the major roads in Lagos State. Okay, all expressways, all bridges, all dual carriageways, they are no longer allowed. There is a comprehensive list of streets and roads on which we will not allow commercial motorcyclists as an extra to that legislation. Okay, I think there are about 470 of those streets and roads where they are absolutely prohibited. Of course, Lagos State has about 9,000 roads and streets and so on.
Sorry, so, is there also a time limit with which they can operate?
Now, I'm coming to that, because where they cannot operate at all, the issue of time limit does not come. But in those places where they are allowed to operate, and these are typically places where the mass transit option is not well developed yet, so people rely almost entirely on motorcycles and tricycles. So where they can operate, they are allowed to operate between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. only, not beyond that, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And in that case, they can only carry one passenger at a time. You know, they cannot carry a passenger who is pregnant or who has a baby.
Visible pregnancy, that is.
Yeah, well, visible pregnancy, yes. Or who is carrying a heavy load, you know, on his or her head, or along with himself or herself on the motorcycle. Of course, we know that a lot of accidents are caused by the imbalance, which the heavy load or having a lot of passengers, 2 or more behind you, can cause. So then the protective helmet is totally compulsory for both the rider and the passenger. So these are minimum conditions for being on the road. And then we are insisting on rider's card, which is the equivalent of the driver's license for motorcycle operators. And by the time you get these rider's cards, we surely have all your details. And then the commercial plate, motorcycle plate that you will use, issued to you also will enable us to get all your details. So we are dealing again with the security issues here, so that every operator in Lagos is identifiable and traceable.
So now, has this law been gazetted?
Now it's being gazetted.
So what's the time frame for that?
I'm sure definitely before the end of this week, all of the copies will be out of press.
Well, 8.1 here says removal of highway or abandoned task vehicles from sites and private premises. What does that mean?
Yeah. Again, one thing you will notice in Lagos is that a lot of streets are having vehicles permanently parked. When you see those vehicles, you will know that they were not parked this morning or yesterday. They're typically very dusty, looking broken down and so on. They aggravate the traffic problems because they just occupy a part of the road. And then they also contribute to the destruction of the road structure itself, because typically they will leak oil and they become refuse dump. People put refuse underneath them and so on. And then now, there are also security risks, because God forbid, these are places where people hide guns, people could put bombs and things like that. So we want to promote that consciousness that, one, when we have those, we'll call them abandoned vehicles, we have a system for removing them and destroying them. Two, if you look further in that law,
destroying them, you have a crush site?
Yes, you have facilities for crushing. Yeah. So another thing is that we want the people in the neighborhood. The law even puts an obligation on the people in the neighborhood to report such. So when you've seen a vehicle that's been there for too long and you think that there's something suspicious there, you should go to the nearest police station and say that we don't know who has this vehicle, it's been there for a while. I think it's just good for everyone's safety for us to be conscious of those. So you can now imagine in Lagos, all of our side streets rid of these useless vehicles. I think we'll breathe more freely, we'll move more freely, and it will be to everybody's benefit.
Well, before we talk about parks, provision of parks, we'll also ask if your government is doing anything now irrespective of this law, with those streets where you can call them link roads, but at a certain point in time, we realize that people can shut them and close them up without anyone having access. We're talking about the communities in such areas. And you also say provision of vehicle parks is by the state government. Let's marry that with the NURTW, the National Union of Road Transport Workers in Lagos State. They've been saying that by this law, you've taken them off the whole scheme of things to the extent that they seem to be jobless now.
Okay, let me start there. I'll go back to the issue of provision of parks and side streets that are sometimes locked up. The Union of Road Transport Workers is a trade union. So workers' association, just as you would find in other professions. But the big difference, which we all see every day, is that in the bid to collect, as they say, their union dues, you find them in motor parks, you find them at bus stops, you find them along the roads, just stopping commercial vehicle operators. I'm twisting, forcing, sometimes with a whip, you know, making sure that they collect their dues. And we think that is an imposition on all of us. This is a public highway. Even the motor park is a public facility. It's not for any particular profession to use as an office.